Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are honored to have our professional of the year. That's right, Dr. Grant Venerable joining us here. Yes, once again, excited to have him here, as always, to talk more about his work and all his accolades. I know he's a very humble man, very wise, but he has done so many different lectures, published so many articles, books, and also, as an expressionist artist, I mean, he does a lot. And he's joining us here today to talk more. It's been exciting to get to know him for the past few months on his amazing series. And again, we got to congratulate him on being, so awesome and that professional of the year, because boy, oh boy, with the knowledge you've obtained, the experience, your work, your skills, Grant, it's always fascinating to sit here and talk to you. So I'm honored, and I know our listeners are too. So Dr. Venerable, tell us who you are, what you do. If someone's tuning in today, you better stay and listen.
I want to go now, shift gears a little to a process of gradual putting together everything in a unity that really was what my life was training to be from childhood. And you have to live a certain number of years to really start to recognize that. And so my orientation has been about pulling things together into a unity, that there really aren't the sharp divisions and separations that people are imagining today. They're just not there, except when we let our brains go off in a strange direction. And instead of seeing unity, we see separation and polarization and things like that. Not to say that there are not disagreements among people. That is part of our nature. Our human nature is to discuss and to look at what differences we have and how the differences complement one another. So I'm wishing you that it's still the top of the morning here. This is my orange juice.
Aww.
And if you have orange juice, that would be a good thing to awaken your brains with. But I know many of you are already past 12 o'clock noon, but it's still late morning here in Southern California in the desert. And what I'm thinking of as I'm sipping my juice is where the oranges came from in the first place here in California. They were in vast orange groves all over Southern California, at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains and coming over into the Orange County area, which is where that got its name from oranges. And so Florida is not the only source of orange juice, and it brings back memories. And that's one of the rich dividends of existence, is the older you get and the more open you get to life, the memories begin to organize themselves. And my memories of those orange groves were priceless, because that was a dominant feature of life in California. And as you go up the coast, up through the coastal valleys, the inland San Joaquin Valley, up to the Sacramento Valley, are groves and groves of fruit, and also rows and rows of vegetables. So it made California the vegetable producer for the nation and for other countries as well. As far as orange groves go, that pulls back memories of my first summer camp experience when I went by myself.
Aww.
And it's in the memoir because it's one of the most important events of my growing up. Footprints in the chaotic unknown. And there's a difference between footprints and footsteps. It takes footsteps in the right places to make a good footprint. And a footprint in the sand or the soil is a a good memory of some past, and I dare say, future event, because in the general relativity scheme, there's a relativity of space and time. But we live mainly in the Isaac Newton view of the world. So we separate time into past and future because it's linguistically convenient for us to think of something was past and something is the future. But what I've learned with a number of friends is how to really experience past, future together, operating through the present. And it gives one a much richer, much bigger, unified view of life. Well, that moment, it was back in middle of 1950 when my parents decided, based on recommendations of their friends, to send me to a certain camp up in Northern California in the area of Palo Alto. I call it the Palo Alto metropolitan area, which includes Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. Well, there was a camp there that was founded by the Josephine Duvenick and her husband, Frank Duvenick. Well, Josephine was also a Whitney. She was from the Whitney. There have been a couple of very wonderfully wealthy Whitney families when one did great things with their money, and they were great industrialists. And so Frank Duvenick was the son of the famous artist in New England, Frank Duvenick. And they had a vision. They were Quakers, and their Quaker faith helped give them a vision of how life could be, to get beyond some of the problems that people had in their lives. And they moved to California, Northern California, sometime in the 1920s, I believe. And they bought up a nice chunk of land, about more than 2,000 acres of the Los Altos Hills.
Okay.
And they wanted to set that land aside. And so when they did their wills, they put that land in an estate for the people of California to enjoy it, and not have it, well, it was natural forest land. It was beautiful acreages. There was little ponds and lakes and streams. So it became a preserve, a wildlife preserve. These two people in 1945 decided to found this summer camp. And they wanted it to be a camp for youngsters of all different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, what we call racial backgrounds, and different religious backgrounds. And they asked the parents to fill out an application to designate what some of those backgrounds are, so that the Duvenicks and their staff could make what they felt would be a desirable balance of youngsters from ages, about 6 or 7 years of age. I was 7, a couple of months from 8 when I got there, up through the age of perhaps 15 years of age. So really visionary parents of middle class and upper middle class backgrounds would send their kids there and really enjoyed it. It got high recommendations. But why do I think of oranges? It's because when I went there, I went up on a train when trains were practically the only way, except for buses, to get around. A few people flew, but there's this lovely train called the San Joaquin Sacramento Daylight, and it traveled up from Los Angeles over the near desert around Mojave and Lancaster, and then it would go over what we call the Tehachapi Mountains into the Great Central Valley, and then it would go up to the Bay Area, up to as far as the Sacramento Delta, and then it would the tracks would go around toward the bay, the San Francisco Bay, and then head south
Okay.
for about 15 miles to the cities of Richmond and Berkeley
Mm-hmm.
and Oakland. And I took the train.
Mm.
And my godparents, the Pittmans, were there to meet me at the Berkeley station. And they took me and kept me at their home for, I think, 2 nights. And I got to meet their big dog, a beautiful French poodle.
Mm-hmm.
And that dog was tall enough practically to look me in the eyes as I was standing, my full height. But it was a frolicsome, beautiful, playful dog named Anjouet. Has to do with enjoying life, Anjouet. And then the Pittmans on my second day there drove me down to across the bay
Mm.
to the San Francisco side of the peninsula, and then right down to Palo Alto.
Oh, wow.
And we drove over what was then the El Camino Real, the main highway from San Francisco down to San Jose and even south to San Jose. And it wasn't that big of a highway. Maybe it was one lane in each direction. Some areas it was 2 lanes, but it was surrounded by groves of fruit, orange groves, plum groves, peach and apricot groves. And so it was a different place prior to the 1950s and the 60s. And then it built up, but it wasn't a planned build up like it could have been. So we're learning things now about the unity of planning, how you live,
Okay.
and what kind of communities you're going to have. So the summer camp was a perfect kind of experience. It was the first time I felt I had some sense of responsibility, and went out with 4 of the other boys in my same age group,
Mm-hmm.
and decided to take a hike before dinner. And you had to be back by like 5 o'clock for dinner. And I noticed just from the position of the sun that it was getting late and probably toward 5 o'clock. So I suggested to everyone we needed to head back. Well, 2 of the guys were saying, "Oh no, we're going to stay out longer. We're not ready to go back." So I think 2 of us and myself went on back to the encampment, and the other 2 guys did not come back for dinner. So it was a minor crisis.
Aw.
It could have been major, but it stayed minor.
Yeah.
And it was dark when the counselors went out with flashlights to search for these other guys, and fortunately found them. They were desperately lost. So that was one of the highlights of understanding the meaning of taking personal responsibility for oneself and one's decisions, and working with others. So my mother came up on a train to pick me up at the end of this 2-week camp period.
Yeah.
And we traveled home.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the station, orange groves again, seeing these beautiful orange groves, and then got on the all-night train, the Lark, the L-A-R-K, the Lark,
Yeah.
and then got off in the morning at the Los Angeles Union Station. I wanted to talk about that because it relates to the larger idea of what I want to talk about. And that larger idea is that life has about maybe 3 or 4 major compartments, if I could put it like that, sections to it.
Okay.
And one section that I understood had to do with laws of science, physical laws of science that governed our nature and our universe. And then there's laws that we call civil laws that covered all areas of human behavior, human development. And then there was a section of life called religion. And religion has certain laws. So one of my activities that I like to participate in is how do these different sets of laws relate to one another and help us to live our lives? And I thought more about that question after I finished college, after I finished graduate school. And I started noticing some patterns about how life operates.
Yep.
And that religion has its views. And interestingly enough, religion was our entree to understanding laws. And different religious beliefs and practices had, actually, there were some similarities in their laws that we could even call universal laws. Science has laws. And the civil society has laws. So that's what I wanted to get more into now, is the nature of universal law and how it has a creative element to it. It has created patterns in it. And the ancient people noticed these patterns, and they actually created stories to talk about these laws. And they gave these laws names of individuals. Now, some of the laws were the names of, like, the Greek gods of Greek mythology, and the laws of Roman mythology, the laws of African mythology. But out of these mythologies, from all over the world, Far East, Chinese mythologies, Asian Indian mythology, American Indian, Native American mythologies, out of that came an idea called civilization. Can people, as we were getting more people, I mean, there weren't many people at the start of things, but people needed ways to organize themselves. And religion was their obvious way. They used names of entities that they, in English, our English words, they called gods. And the gods had all kinds of references to them, deities and forces, but these names helped to organize people's lives and the tribal ways in which they lived. So all this is starting from orange juice, my friends and colleagues, and that juice is a food. And the first important activity the small groups of humans had to do was get food. And how do you get food? Where do you get food?
Gotta hunt.
They had to hunt for food.
Said you gotta hunt.
The women went out and gathered food. They gathered fruits and berries that grew out in nature. They gathered nuts, and the fellows went out and hunted for animals that were good to eat. So it was the food and organization and how you get the food that led to everything else. Literally led to everything else. It led to the world of economics. And of course, those are important words. Eco plus nomics are from the Latin terms. They might be Greek originally, but eco is the house. And nomi or nomics is the organization of the house. So that's what economics is about, how you organize your house. Well, your house was your environment at the beginning. It
Mm-hmm.
was nature, out in nature. And then humans began to create their own environments that became villages, that became towns, that became cities. But not everyone was settled in cities and towns. Some people were nomads and they roved around, and that's how they lived. A lot of nomadic people herded sheep, they herded
Yeah.
cattle, and they took them along with them. Well, that set the pattern for what we see
Mm-hmm.
today. It also set the pattern for what we call education today.
Mm-hmm.
Education from the root word edu, educ, educare. It means to uh, educe, bring out the human potential. And that has all kinds of manifestations to it because there's different forms,
Mm-hmm.
layers of education. The first was that which educates your youngsters and how you take care of yourselves and get your food, build your housing, find your housing,
Mm-hmm.
and trade with other local populations. And you develop knowledge around that. And one of those important knowledges were mathematics, what we call arithmetic today, simple algebras today. And then there's another layer of education, and each of those layers corresponds to the kind of mathematics that were developed. Now, this is getting interesting at that stage because it was simple math at math one level, but that was the key level of building what you need to survive day to day. How
Yep.
do you feed yourselves? Where do you have a place to sleep? How do you organize your tasks? And
Yeah.
then the next level is just a little more advanced and very advanced in other ways. And that's the math that enables you to perform certain specialized functions and tasks. So we had early science, we had alchemy, we had early engineering. How did those great peoples in Mesopotamia, and ancient Egypt, and ancient China, and ancient India, ancient Americas, build their structures?
Yeah.
Some very beautiful structures were built. They took a lot of mathematics, and that was your math two level
Mm-hmm.
of being. And that took some training. And there were teachers that were specialized in doing that. And that spawned the individual kinds of mathematics that's called applied mathematics today. Then there's another level of mathematics that's higher than that. And it's called pure
Okay.
mathematics. It's what mathematicians who are just interested in how numbers operate. What is the character of a number? And I thought of something when we first started. Um, I always ask my students to
Oh.
compute their birth numbers before we study chemistry or cultural studies. And I said, would you please compute your birth number so that we can have a successful learning experience? So I'd use my own as an example. And I would say, well, here's how you compute your birth number.
Yeah.
You take the number of your month, add it to the number of the day of the month you were
Okay.
born, and then you add that to the year. Now we use the Julian calendar, whatever calendar, the Augustinian calendar that came out of ancient Rome, and that's why we're in 2025. But if you're in the Jewish religion, you
Okay.
also use the Jewish calendar. So we're up to like maybe the year 5800 or
Oh, wow.
something like that. And then there's Hebrew, there's Arab calendars, Chinese calendars, and the like. But let's stick with the Roman calendar,
Sure.
2025.
Okay.
So then you take your year of birth in the Roman calendar. So and then you start adding digits. So if you're born in 1950, if you're born January 1st, keep it simple, 1950, that's the first month and the first day.
Mm-hmm.
And you add those two numbers, you get 2. So you put them in a little bracket over here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take the 1950, you add the 1 and the 9, and you get 10.
Mm.
Then you add the 5 and the 0, you get 5. Then you add the 5 and the 10, and you get 15. And then you add the 1 and the 5 and the 15, and you get 6.
Yeah.
6. And then you combine that with the 2 you had over here, and you get 8. And that's the birth number for
Oh,
anyone born January 1st, 1950.
okay.
So that's a lot of people today. If you're born January 1, 1950, see, it'd be like about, pushing 80 years old at this point. And and that means, well, people talked in terms, they communicated in terms of numerology all over the world. So each of the 9 digits, and I'll say 10 digits, but it was 9 at the
Yeah.
start, 1 through 9. But there's a 10th digit called 0.
Okay.
And zero did not get discovered until the Arabs got around to discovering it. And so that makes one of the most interesting lessons in all of the schooling you could have on the properties of nothing, which we also call no thing, as in no thingness. So my birth number, when I compute all my numbers, turns out to be 1. Everything adds up to 1. And
Wow.
there's 2 obvious meanings for 1. One is a trivial meaning, unless you're an accountant, in which it's a 1 like number of objects or
Mm-hmm.
number of dollars. It's just 1. But
Yeah.
the deeper spiritual metaphysical meaning of 1 is unity. So I guess somehow I chose unity as a purpose for my life, is to seek unity in all the things that I did,
Yeah.
unifying groups, unifying knowledge, unifying my friends. And that really is what I want to drive at today, is how that works with what I talked about. We have universal laws that are the unity of all of those laws that govern our universe. And part of those, another subset of that, are the laws of religion.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
And
hold on one
religion,
sec because I
yes.
apologize because I just got hold on. We're supposed to have a half-hour show today, right? But I'm used to having an hour show, so we've been obviously going along, and I'm so sorry. But the good news is, if I could share with you, that our guest has not arrived. So would you like to keep chatting then?
I would, yeah,
Oh,
certainly.
fantastic. All right, great, great, great. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I looked at the clock and I was like, wait, oh my God, it's supposed to be a short show. But you know what? I've been sitting here and I'm looking at us and there's no alert yet. So let's continue. Grant Venerable here again, our
Okay.
professional
All
of the
right.
year. Let's continue. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. I got so
Well,
scared.
okay. Well, let me look at my notes here. Um, One thing I was thinking when I started the call is I had a happy experience of reaching out to HP this
Mm-hmm.
morning, which used to be called Hewlett Packard,
Yes.
one of the first companies in Silicon Valley. And as much as I have critiqued Silicon Valley since its formation way back in the
Mm-hmm.
1940s and 50s, I had a success story.
Okay.
And when I see a success, I want to acknowledge it. And I want to do that with how HP organized itself to survive some difficult economic moments, like various old recessions and oh, especially in the 1990s, and then again in the 2010s, things like that. But HP has been able to
Hmm.
survive through some important recessions, and they've been able to save their corporate structures.
Okay.
And I admire that.
Ah.
What HP did, all those buildings in Silicon Valley, from San Jose up to San Francisco and across to the East Bay, they're mostly two-story buildings. I think
Okay.
I've mentioned that on here a couple of times. The main corporate offices in San Francisco are tall buildings.
Mm-hmm.
They go from 30 to 60s, 70 stories these days. And the executive suite is usually on the top floor.
Oh.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. But
Oh.
so there's an elevator that takes you up to the executive suite. So the language cues the brain that, oh, these are the important people. So, and you reach them by going up toward heaven, so to speak, Mount Olympus, the gods on Mount Olympus. Well, Hewlett Packard was a pioneer in construction of Silicon Valley buildings, only two stories, maybe a few of its buildings, because it was spread out over the entire south of San Francisco down to San Jose area. But it was to emphasize a principle of management that was unified, namely, the executive team wanted to develop a sense of unity between the team and the rank and file workers of the company. And I was given an experience of that early on. Oh, it was around 1986 when I
Okay.
visited a colleague who worked in the
Wow.
main HP plant in Palo Alto. And we ate in the cafeteria,
Mm-hmm.
had a wonderful lunch. But my friend Eric pointed out that, you see that table over there near the door?
Yeah.
And you'll see that there's not too many people seated there, but there's two chairs reserved for the executive team. When they come down to eat, that's where they go eat. But the empty chairs are for any employee that wants to sit down and share lunch with the executive team and offer their experiences, their viewpoints of the company, what they would do to improve it. And I guess that's one of the ways they survived one of the recessions that took out a number of big companies. Even IBM was kind of hard pressed for a while
Mm-hmm.
until they could reinvent themselves. That's one of the important things that a unified organism knows how to do. Well, Hewlett Packard and IBM changed businesses. They kept the name and even added some new names like Lenovo for IBM. But HP became HP, and it became a master printer to make wonderful printers that literally were miraculous magic. And they unified a concept around, they still dealt with PCs and other computers, but they would market a whole package of a computer, a printer, but it was all around the printer and the cartridges of the printer. And what was going on for me is that once I moved, my address change did not get to HP for their Insta Ink division to supply me, but they knew when my printer needed a new cartridge because my printer is online on the internet with HP. And the printer sends out a signal that says, well, this dude is running out of ink in
Right?
this color of cartridge. He needs a new cartridge.
Yeah.
And so I have a contract that pays for
Mm-hmm.
a certain number of renewal of cartridges. And the more I print, the more cartridges I use. So my price is adjusted in a unified way around that. So this was a happy morning because I was able to reach the telephone of HP, which is a miracle because a lot of the big companies don't want their telephone numbers outside because they don't want people, including customers, to call. Because anyway, that's another conversation. But HP supplied the number, the telephone number, along with my cartridge. And it's written right on the cartridge. So since they lost track of my address and I wasn't getting my cartridges, I took one of my old cartridges, read the phone number, called them, talked to a young gentleman just this morning, and he took care of it. It took a few minutes, but he took care of it.
Yeah.
And I said, whoopee, I finally succeeded in this nice unified structure that HP has provided for its products. So that's one form of unity. But one thing I've been emphasizing in my memoir is how do we achieve a unified approach to life, a unified approach to our careers, so that we integrate how we live with how we do our professional lives and with how we entertain ourselves, how we visit, how we attend art and performing arts functions. So all that is built into a unity of life. And that is here in my notes for today.
For our show, which is unexpected, but of course, we're excited that you are here. Wow. By the way, let me open up the lines. If you are interested in chatting, 631-307-4010. What the heck? Lines are open now, 631-307-4010. We are here with Dr. Grant Venerable and ecstatic that he's staying for us, for the second half of the show. So thank you for that. Always a pleasure having you here. And for those that don't know a little bit about you, go ahead.
One of the most wondrous, interesting things I've observed just in the last year is because some people believe in a deity and some don't. Some people are spiritual, but they have other relationships with the God, the Godhead.
Okay.
Some people subscribe to the laws of Moses.
Okay.
Some people subscribe to the laws of Buddha, the laws of Hindu, laws of other religious figures. I got noticing, and that's why this came up, is that some people who are religious feel that in order to have a sense of right and wrong, we call that morality. And so morals teaches us how to conduct ourselves. I noticed, at least for myself, I did not feel that I required a religious connection, although I have a religious connection, but I don't need literature or a biblical connection to know right from wrong.
Yeah.
And much debate could be had over that, but I was speaking to a colleague years ago, and that's where the idea came up, is from that principle of rightness and wrongness. Some laws, breaking those laws, automatically leads to being penalized when you break those laws. And I noticed that there's the ultimate laws that if they're broken, the ultimate laws for me are the laws of science,
Mm-hmm.
the laws of mathematics. So we can have debates even on, do the laws of science govern God? Or does God govern the laws of science?
Yeah.
But many religious philosophers will say, well, no, God is in the universe. And so God abides by the laws of the universe.
Yep.
So that makes for really interesting discussions. But when you have civil laws, man-made laws, it's sometimes people get the wrong idea. They figure, well, if it's just a man-made law, like thou shalt not steal, and if no one's looking, and I want to steal something, and so I don't get caught, and so nothing can happen to me. But actually, if the civil laws don't take note of your transgression, the laws of nature do.
Yeah.
The laws of nature include the laws of psychology and social psychology and the laws of physics and chemistry and biology. And that's part of the unity of the whole thing. And that's what I enjoy talking about, in that there was one time I transgressed in high school on a math test, because I was I don't know if I mentioned that before, but it was something that I realized was wrong. The teacher had us grade our own exam papers one day, and he was a great teacher, a great guy, and so we got our own papers back to grade. And then he went over the right answers to the test. And on one question, I said, oh, I missed that, but I knew that. So anyway, long story short, I changed my answer. I thought better of that after class. And I said, well, this guy may be he may be a sharp guy. He may have known what everyone wrote. So he could tell if you changed your answer or not.
Ah, I see.
Now,
Okay.
I guilt tripped myself. Now, if I'd had no sense of right or wrong, I would not have guilt tripped myself. I'd have just gone on and not worried about it. But I did worry. I worried that was wrong of me. And it took me maybe a few weeks to really get through that. But I did. And I never did that again. In other words, anytime you break a law, whether you think you get away with it or not, it catches up with you. And
Karma.
the Eastern philosophers have a word. You just said it.
Yeah.
Right. Karma.
That's it.
It's a law of action. Actions produce consequences, whether or not you think you'll get caught or do get caught or not. So, and one of my good colleagues said, there's certain things that are just self-penalizing if you do the wrong thing. And just as we think, we watch the news and we think people are getting away with stuff, and they're not. There's, there's science is self-penalizing. If you break the law of gravity, like if you don't know the law of gravity or respect it, and you step over a ledge
Mm-hmm.
500 feet above the ocean rocks, that becomes a self-penalizing
Mm-hmm.
action. And that's through the sciences. Even if people break a religious moral law,
Ah.
they still have karma to pay. And you never know how that's going to be paid. But when it's not taught by a police officer or the courts, it
Mm.
still comes up for payment. And I've noticed that's why I don't mess with that. If it's wrong, I don't allow myself to violate much. Now, if I'm wrong because I didn't know, I hadn't learned, then I said, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
That's not good. That doesn't work. So I don't have to do that again. So I think what we've worked our way up to here is something really important. I think it's important today, particularly in the political life of the country,
Mm-hmm.
because we see people who
Hmm.
are charged with breaking laws, and whether or not they're brought to trial, they still have to be held to account for them, whether anyone knows about it or not.
Mm.
And that's a tough thing when I tell friends, oh, that person seemed to get away with something. I said, no, nobody gets away with anything if they violated the law,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's the laws of science, and especially if it's the laws of social psychology or the laws of religion. But religion, I think people sometimes in a secular society, we get a little bit sloppy about it. Oh, nobody will notice. It's just religion. But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And my years on earth have proven that. So I don't need any more confirmation than that.
Got it. Wow. And by the way, I got an email about being Veterans Day. I just want to, since you have such a big platform here, honor all those who have served tomorrow, and what they've done. It means a lot. I think to so many of us for all the service. If everyone out there is listening today is a veteran, Grant, what would you want to say to them?
Right. To the veterans. And of course, veteran, golly, I haven't looked up the Greek Latin root of that term,
Yeah.
but my brother's a veteran in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Many of my cousins have been veterans, and people have created a literal belief
Mm-hmm.
around that in a civilized society that being a veteran means you have made a commitment. Some people don't survive to live, enjoy their lives as veterans. But nonetheless, we have Veterans Day in order to celebrate that part of a person that one has given to the nation
Oh,
in the honor of the nation, the people of the
yeah.
nation, the Constitution of the nation, and the sacred way in which it was founded. And I think that's one reason I adored President Eisenhower. You know, I wasn't old enough to vote uh, back then, but I was old enough to admire him and seeing him when his motorcade passed the street I lived on
Oh my
one of the
gosh.
great boulevards of Los Angeles, named after the second president, President Adams. And this was Adams Boulevard. And Ike, that's what everyone called him, was Ike.
Yeah.
And Ike was in his open air Cadillac limousine as it went by, and people were lined up on both sides of the boulevard, and he was waving his hat at people. I got criticized a lot for not being more intellectual like other presidents, but the man really did a work of miracles when he provided for D-Day to occur and organized the forces, the Allied forces. And it gets me choked up just to even talk about it, because there was humanity behind that.
Yeah.
That's the point of being a veteran, is the humanity involved in loving your country, loving your family, protecting your family, your country, your community.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel I can leave us with today. Other than to say, I wish everyone had experienced President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And unfortunately, it is time to say goodbye. How can we reach out to you, Grant?
At ventwo@aol.com, but label the subject as podcast inquiry.
Yeah.
Or look at my website at grantdvenerablephd.com, all lowercase letters, and that'll give you a lot of information and taped interviews and lists of my books. Was put up by Who's Who in America, and that's another very great organization that's done a great service to the nation and keeping track of the social assets of this society.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing. When the government needs to reach people to carry out certain projects, they'll look at sources like Who's Who in America, and to find those people.
Well, thank you again for being here, for joining us, Grant Venerable. We will talk again next week. I do have to go, but I'm glad we got some extra time today to chat. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Jill.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your day, sweetheart. Bye.
All right. Okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.